From the National Newsroom of the Canadian Press, I'm Don Mitchell. Prime Minister Mark Carney is set to head back to Washington this week and touch on a new economic and security relationship with his U.S. counterpart.
Carney's meeting with Donald Trump is set for Tuesday and will mark his second visit to the White House since becoming prime minister. Canadian officials have been cycling through Washington ahead of Trump's declared August deadline for a trade deal, although no such deal materialized and the president increased tariffs on Canada to 35%. The prime minister's office says this week's visit will focus on shared priorities in a new economic and security relationship between Canada and the United States. Naira Ahmed, The Canadian Press.
Meanwhile, Quebec's premier says Canadian agriculture policy should not be on the table in any trade discussions with the United States. Speaking today at the Great Lakes St. Lawrence Summit in Quebec City, Francois Legault says Canada's supply management system is too important to tamper with.
We want to keep small farms in Quebec. We have a very large territories. We don't give them any grant, but we need to keep the system.
The supply management system was put in place by the Canadian government to control production, set prices, and restrict imports to ensure stability for Canadian farmers. Ottawa says there are Canadians among activists that have been detained while trying to reach Gaza by sea via a flotilla. Global Affairs Canada says it is aware of at least 2 Canadian citizens that have been in custody following their involvement in a campaign that saw roughly 450 activists arrested by Israeli forces. The fleet of 42 ships that made up the global Sumud flotilla sought to break Israel's naval blockade of Gaza. Meanwhile, America's top diplomat is expressing optimism ahead of negotiations between Israel and Hamas to end fighting in Gaza.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the talks in Egypt are the closest we've come to getting hostages released, but there are opportunities for sabotage.
So no one said this is going to be easy. This is good progress, but a lot of work remains.
He said time is of the essence.
This cannot take weeks or even multiple days. We want to see this happen very fast. If it doesn't, then I think the entire deal becomes imperiled.
Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, the president's son-in-law, are part of the U.S. delegation in Egypt. Brian Clark, ABC News.
And finally, an Ontario researcher is using artificial intelligence to develop what could be a breakthrough antibiotic treatment for Crohn's and inflammatory bowel disease. McMaster University's John Stokes, his team, and partners at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology are using AI to isolate a new antibiotic treatment in less than half the time it normally takes. Stokes says developing a new antibiotic normally costs millions of dollars and takes several years. However, with AI sequencing, his lab completed the first steps in about 6 months and for about roughly $60,000. Canada has one of the highest rates of inflammatory bowel disease globally, and there's currently no cure. This is the Canadian Press. In sports, Blue Jays manager John Schneider tinkered with his lineup for Game 2 of the American League Division Series against star left-hander Max Fried and the New York Yankees, which is now underway. Davis Schneider, Miles Straw, and former Yankee Isaiah Kiner-Falefa were moved into the starting lineup. Utility man Addison Barger and outfielders Anthony Santander and Nathan Lucas, who all started yesterday's opener, are available off the bench. Rachel Homan defeated Corinne Brown 6-2 in the battle of 2 undefeated teams in the women's final at the PointsBet Invitational Curling Tournament in Calgary. Homan's Ottawa rank jumped ahead 3-0 after 4 ands and 5-1 after 7. And former NFL quarterback Mark Sanchez is facing charges despite being stabbed multiple times during a late-night altercation with a truck driver in downtown Indianapolis. Authorities say the offenses tied to a scuffle the Fox Sports analyst was in are based on details from hotel video footage and the driver's statement to police. The affidavit alleges Sanchez accosted the driver outside a hotel, prompting the driver to defensively pull out a knife. From the Canadian Press, I'm Don Mitchell.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to follow and subscribe. For more of today's top stories, visit thecanadianpressnews.ca.